that have done things for a long, long time. Okay, you learn a lot more than watching some Google video.
Right.
Okay, so I just think that talking about South Florida owns a very special place for me. I'm trying to figure out a way to get down there for the Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. Depends on whether my crew can break away.
Right.
I'm afraid I'm going to have too much fun if I go down there, to be honest with you.
I wouldn't.
But I do want to come down and see you. For sure that I would run around Hollywood and just see see the old turf. It's been a while. I think the last time I was down there was for the NFL Players Association convention in Miami. They were right on the Miami Beach thing, and it was really great. As I went out there with Steve Atwater while all the other guys were golf, and we talked to. There had to be at least 2,000 kids out there, and they were all from the Broward County, Fresh Air Fund, and they were all little kids, and we were just out there telling them, what it takes to be a professional athlete, and how they were blessed to be, healthy and have a roof over their head and to have a dream and go work at it and support your family and, you're a reflection on your family, and it was great. And, and Steve Atwater was just a really special guy. The guy was a headhunter, but to me he was just another ball player, So, sometimes, when you've been around a lot of really smart people and really talented people, you don't really think so much of yourself. You're kind of humbled, and you don't realize what kind of impact you're having because it's an everyday thing most of the time.
All right. I think when we talk about this broadcast by the numbers, I'm going to just mention a few that we talked about during our pre-production earlier, Bill. First of all, you were telling me that, obviously you alluded to this before, you made $500 per night cash to be a bouncer, which really amounts to $1,500 to $2,000 per week, just doing that. The Giants' salary you earned was $25,000. And the other stat that stood out is that the NFL spits out these players, and that 90% of the league, obviously, they get spit up. So I think when you break things down, Bill, from a numerical standpoint, yeah, you've definitely probably did not earn money in the high rent district, but you could have all the money in the world, but if you blow it, it doesn't make you any smarter. Okay, then it is with a guy like yourself who has little, making a lot out of nothing and being able to capitalize on opportunities. So I know we've talked in previous shows about your actor experience out in L.A. And let me tell you something. You made a great point, Bill. When I was in Los Angeles over the last 7-8 days, of the people that I saw, 2 of them were from junior high to high school, and I hadn't seen them in over 40 years. So I can definitely appreciate where you're coming from there. I really do. And it's a totally different animal in L.A. versus South Florida, and I was able to appreciate that dynamic a lot more. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
Scotty?
Yes, Bill.
Let me just say this to our audience as well, because This is really important.
Sure.
What I say about how the system can't keep up with me. You have a dream, but there are people who live the dream and actually live the dream, and there are people who just talk about it. I used to have an expression, don't talk about it, be about it. Dude, I've done the work.
Right.
All right, and when you sit and you cold call 6 days a week, 12 hours a day on the telephone,
right.
All right, that separates the pretenders from the contenders in the brokerage industry.
Huh.
I take a lot of pride in this. At age 44, I was a millionaire. I had the highest net worth of any NFL player from 1976 to 1987 with the amount of money that I had up at the NFL Financial Advisors Program. For 10 years, I commuted between Los Angeles and Tampa, Florida, and all I did was replace acting for professional football. I would go out after Labor Day. I would live in Gold's Gym. I would come home every couple of weeks, the first couple of years, to keep an eye on my mom and my aunt. I would come home, so I would come out. I'd go after Labor Day, stay out there in California for a couple of weeks, come home for a week, go back out to California. After about 2 or 3 years, I just stayed out there straight till December. But I would come home every December and stay in Florida from December and January. Then go back out after the Super Bowl from February till the end of about the middle of May. I did that for, I think, 11 years. I was trying to bring the NFL Players Association $100 million of ball players' money. Why? if you're educated, you can take a look and know what the future holds. And I said, there are going to be guys that are going to wind up making that kind of money. And that's the kind of contracts they're signing now. And as a broker on Friday, I cold called all the players during the strike. I had a handful of players that are household names that are clients. Merrill Lynch was giving me a hard time about it. Because I asked them, I said, why don't you sponsor a bowl game? Oh, we don't want to do that. I said, I told you a long time ago, you may want to have an apprentice program. I'm one of your top producers in the country, and you wouldn't even give me an opportunity in the 70s. You now have a Merrill Lynch apprentice program. Okay? Everything revolves around money. It's a shame, but it is. But you have to be smart enough not to sell out for money. And that's what the difference is for me. I had enough of education to understand if you're really good at what you do and you're patient, you keep working at it, all right, the money will come. Okay? So you have to have a lot of patience. At age 44, I was very lucky that I hit the mother lode. I handed the NFLPA $650,000. Would you like to take a look at the audit on the advisor that managed that money? It has been so egregious that instead of the NFLPA needs to be chastised. If you Google that program, you will clearly see it is a freaking joke. Matt Burke is like my little brother. He went to Harvard, and he had a great career. All right, and he's an interesting guy himself, and he works for the NFL now. But, me, I'd probably be where he at, except I got injured with the New York Giants and went up to Canada because the organization was a joke. Okay, and we fumbled the ball against the Philadelphia Eagles. I was on the sideline for the Miracle in the Meadowlands. Hell, I want to win football games. I had worked out with the Eagles. That organization was prehistoric. And I take a lot of pride in the sense that I went up to Canada. And don't think that the Maras didn't. Mr. Mara was all over me. When I went up to Canada, Wellington Mara came up to me. They loved me because I was sitting there with a bunch of players sucking on ice water, 285 pounds, and just a dominant player. Okay, and they just loved me. They used to call my house and speak to my mom. Okay, I went up to Montreal and rubbed it in their face. All right, and that's when they brought Parcells in. That's when they started turning that organization around. Okay, and my goal was to work for them. And I sat back and went, because I got injured, instead of the Giants doing the right thing, they tried to screw me out of my money. I didn't get angry about it, but they had their cake and eat it too. They put me on the non-football related injury list. Back then, if you were an injured reserve, you were lost for the season. I got a coach going in a free agent camp. You're going to be my starting center. And this is before he went to training camp. I'm building my entire offensive line around you. I had #1 draft choice measurables. I turned around and asked them for a $5,000 signing bonus. The coach said, why? Because that's how much I owe my student loan. I want to come in completely focused. I had a one-man block, he said, my own personal trainer. I was so far ahead of everybody else. And they didn't even have a weight room. They had a universal and somebody stole the pins. I never said a word while that organization, to me, dehumanized my family, made a lot of mistakes, and quite frankly, I think they learned from it because I started seeing when McVay went to the 49ers, he built that team into a world championship team, and they had guys like me on their roster. I see today the evolution of Ivy League guys in the National Football League. I can remember thinking that we couldn't even play in the Ivy League because we were supposed to be rich, wealthy white guys. And I used to sit back, and all I've ever done is broken stereotypes. I used to have coaches sit in a meeting, and run the hole, open up a hole, and go, you went to Princeton? You're a nasty SOP. And I was just turning around. Gary Fensick was like that, too. Garrett went to Yale, but he was a headhunter. So I like to think that I'm in that group that, whether we were healthy or not, that we kind of paved the way for some of these guys to come in and where they're at now. Okay, and so I had to overcome some what I consider to be stereotypes of from my generation from 76 to 87. But I always dismiss all that stuff because, hey, on the other hand, I'm living in South Florida. I'm living my dreams. It's all about lifestyle. I'm getting up and lifting weights. I feel great. I'm eating right. I'm meeting lots of people. I'm having a good time, and I'm smart enough to stay away from all the drugs and all that other stuff because I just think people who medicate themselves with alcohol and drugs aren't happy people. I was the exact opposite. When those endorphins were popping, I was so happy all the time. The last thing I want to do is suck down a cocktail or do a line of coke or smoke weed and all that other stuff. So, like, I've had a different perspective all my life. And as I've gotten older now, it's paid off for me huge. It really hit me when I went down to the XFL. I mean, I'm hanging out, and I'm 65. I'm the oldest guy out there. And I look at these kids, and I'm sitting there, they need some help. They need some guys to show them the way and all this stuff. So, Calvin Hill and John Riggins and those guys, they took me under their wing. Larry Zonka took me under their wing when I was playing ball, and I looked up to them. I just felt that, now I got done coaching a high school team out here. I've got two kids playing in the XFL. So all we do is mentor them by not talking about it, but just modeling the behavior, showing the work ethic, and just being quiet and not talking so much. So, I feel blessed, to have lived down in Miami and down there. And I love Florida. Scotty, it's awesome that you live down there and you know about the area because you can relate.
Oh, yeah.
You can really relate. And you know how blessed we were to live down there.
Oh, yeah. Well, you talk about Ivy League guys. I think this name will probably jog your memory. He was a running back at Yale named Richard Diana, who played for the Miami Dolphins. Played here 1 year, then decided to retire, and he became a doctor. So you talk about a guy who decided that the pay in football would not be nearly as much as a medical career. I think Richard Diana, former running back for the Miami Dolphins, and the Dolphins could have used him at that time. That was the post-Zonka area. And the Dolphins were in need of a running back. Diana seemed like a good prospect, but he didn't want to be bothered. And, I recently looked him up on Google as well as LinkedIn, and it's safe to say Richard Diana or Dr. Diana has gone on and done some really good things outside of the gridiron, Bill. So it's pretty neat that when you bring up a perspective like that. And, when I look at some other guys that are smart enough, to have done this thing, I'm always intrigued about what some of the better guys outside of football have done. Warwick Dunn doesn't get enough publicity for what he's done away from the game.
Guy.
Yeah.
Warwick is an awesome guy.
Right, but it's what he's done, only what he's done on the field, but what he's done in his post-career. One of these days we're going to do a show once we go ahead and gather our information about some of the top guys that have gone ahead and done well outside of the game, because we've talked too many people that have failed. There was a guy, Bill, that actually played for the Detroit Lions out of the University of Oklahoma, a wide receiver named Ryan Broyles, who was smart enough like yourself to go out there and build a portfolio. And, he was saddled by injuries, and he's done well. Now, I hear there's talk that this guy may want to play in the XFL. I don't know. I'm not going to get into the gist. I don't have all the facts. But one of these days, we're going to talk about the positive effects of what some of these guys do, because we see too many negative ones, Bill. And I'm glad that
let me interrupt here for a second.
Okay.
One of my dear friends, and I call him one of my mentors, is Dr. Archie Roberts.
Okay.
Archie went to Columbia, became a cardiac surgeon, has done over 5,000 cardiac surgeries. He runs the Living Heart Foundation for the NFLPA. He goes all around the country, and all he does is give players physicals.
Right.
Okay, and let me tell you, I was actually down in Houston last year getting a physical. Actually, guys, one of the reasons I'm not a real big social media person, it's just, hey, if you want to educate people today, you have to adjust to the environment.
Right.
Okay, so I post a lot of stuff on my Facebook page. So people can sit there and go, okay, he's going to start talking about it. I can actually see the pictures. If you go back, you'll see that I took a lot of pictures of a lot of the guys that are household names, and we got physicals. Trust me when I tell you, there were one or two guys that came in there that went to the hospital immediately. Okay, this game takes a hell of a toll. Ask Luke Kuechly. It's just like, the reality of it is that back then, some of us were smart enough to understand that. We were educated enough to understand that, look, we're more than just a football player. Okay, and what am I going to do after football? And I've got to use this as a vehicle to be able to get a good start in life, because I'm sacrificing starting out in the corporate world at age 21, so I'm giving up maybe my